ladies. Welcome to Growing Together in Grace. I'm Kathy.
I'm Ellen.
And we're so glad you're here with us this evening. As we said in last week's episode, we are starting a new series on marriage.
Yes.
So we're very excited about that. Last week, Ellen did her book review. And if you listened, you picked up on the fact that I read the wrong book.
And so your book review will come
at the very end.
So
yes, it's still by the same author. It's just it's not as much of an engagement book,
right?
Book,
it's more. You said it was more like you've been married for a while.
Yes.
Okay, that's the book I want to read. Probably. I mean, not saying that the book that I read wasn't good because it really was good.
Yeah, I mean, even what you discussed brought. Like, oh man, I haven't thought about that in a long time, you know?
Yeah,
so
stuff that you don't think about.
Anyway, today's episode is going to be us sharing our wedding day with y'all. The good, the bad, the in-between, and, you know, what we would change if we could change anything.
Yeah.
But before we do that, we like to share a little 3 to 5 minute clip of our week and what God's been doing and teaching us. So, Ellen, would you please go first?
Yes. So, my week started off, I had a great week because we got to watch our son get baptized. So, it was really exciting to see. We had basically 4 rows full of people who came to watch him get baptized. Just people that basically were a part of his life since we had joined the original church that we were a part of. And I mean, my son had been a part of that building since he was 2 and he's 19.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And it was just so neat to see that profession of faith. And then I got really emotional because I realized while all of the baptism was happening, I'm like, I've watched all 3 of my babies get baptized in the same baptistry.
Yeah, that's cool.
Like, it was really cool. And then I thought about my father-in-law because one of the things that my father-in-law always did was he prayed for the salvation of his grandchildren. And I knew that he had been praying for Andrew because he would ask Chad and I, you know, do you know if Andrew has made a profession of faith? And you know, Chad's like, I had this discussion with him and I just don't know. You know, he understands it, but I don't think he's made that step yet. So my father-in-law had prayed for him till he passed away. And so we were definitely missing him, but I knew he was having that celebration in heaven with my mom. And it was just a cool thing to see.
That's awesome.
You know, as a mother, that's one of the things that you strive for is you want your children to come to the saving knowledge of Christ. And all 3 of mine have made a profession of faith. So that was a great start to the week.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, my friend?
Well, I shared on our Facebook page that we close on our new home next Thursday.
Oh, so y'all, this is our last.
This will be our last podcast to record in this room.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not our last podcast.
No.
But yeah.
No. So we closed on that. And then as of yesterday, we signed a contract with potential buyers for this home.
Oh,
and
okay.
If the inspection goes well, and they are fine with whatever the inspection shows, which the inspection is tomorrow.
Okay.
The closing will be on November 27th.
Okay. So after Thanksgiving.
So after Thanksgiving. Okay. They wanted to do it on the 20th, but you know this, I think we're leaving for 5 days and we would literally be back for 2 days before closing. And it was making me anxious.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think we're going to get everything done that we need to get done to close. So we negotiated with them and moved it to the 27th, or the contract actually says the 29th is the last day, but if we wanted to do it before the 29th, then we could.
Okay.
But I think we're aiming for the 27th.
Okay.
So Anyway, so for me, this week has really just been a lot of thank you, Lord, for providing a home for us. Thank you, Lord, for providing potential buyers for our home, and just praying, because I I didn't sleep great last night.
None of us did. I don't.
I was so anxious and worried about the inspection of this home. Like, what if there's like some underlying problem that we have never known, and now we don't have buyers, and now we've got thousands of dollars of repair, or we have to share it, So I started to feel those anxious thoughts creep up. And that's why I didn't sleep great. And so I just prayed. Every time I would wake up, I'd pray. I'm like, Lord, this is out of my control. Like, I can't control what happens underneath my home or above my home.
Yeah.
Only you can control my home.
Yeah.
And so I'm trusting you to take care of us, whatever the outcome may be or whatever. So the past 24 hours have been doing a lot of praying.
Oh.
So
yeah, I understand.
Anyway,
so prayers,
definitely prayers that both closings will go well. I would love to be able to close this chapter. I mean, I will miss. I hate saying that word "miss" because I'm not gonna not see you anymore,
right?
But it will be different because we're not gonna be living 4 minutes from one another.
I was driving here and I was like, oh. This is my last time driving over to her house to record this podcast at this house.
I was actually thinking after we had lunch, you and Amber and I, after we had lunch, I was like, you know what I need to make sure we do? And I'm going to say the same thing to Jill, is we need to designate, let's say this may be too much, but this is an idea. Let's say one Saturday a month. Yeah. We make a point to meet together in the middle for lunch or breakfast or dinner. Yeah. Or obviously our husbands are such great friends that we'll have to do some double dates. But
no,
it's going to be fine.
I know. I know. So, you're just going to be 47 minutes away.
I know.
But it's all good. I'm happy for you. Okay. I have, I don't know if you saw on our podcast, not our podcast, our page. Sorry, y'all. It's been a long day.
She chased a child.
I did. I chased a child today. And it's just been one of those days. But I was just, thinking I was really struggling with you guys moving. Mm-hmm. And, I'm all so happy for you. And, and I even posted that on Facebook because I was like, I can't tell Kathy this because if I tell her this, I'm just going to start crying and get emotional. No. But, I have watched you go through just your faith and I had this piece for y'all that y'all were going to find the perfect house. The Lord was just going to place you where you needed to be, and looks like he has. So I'm excited for y'all.
Thanks.
Y'all are ready to take on a new chapter in your life, and I think it'll be good.
I'm praying that's the case.
Yes. Yes.
Anyway, so I'm very excited about this questionnaire because I love talking about weddings.
I have to think about this. This is almost 30 years ago.
I love talking about weddings.
Yeah, me too.
So the way that I figured we would do this is I would go with you first. Mm-hmm. What if I did all the questions for you first, and then we flip the script, and then you interview me?
Okay.
What do you think about that?
Yep.
Okay. So Ellen is going to share her wedding day first, and then she'll ask me the same question.
Okay.
So that way we don't have to do the remembering the flip flop.
Excuse me. This one we will. Sorry. I keep burping.
At least you're not smacking your teeth on the mic
or grabbing the mic.
Or
it's okay.
Busting it.
I feel like the mic now is up higher, so I feel like I'm gonna smack it myself. So don't be surprised. Anyways.
Okay, so Ellen, let's do this. I'm gonna ask 3 questions, and then I'm gonna ask the first 3, and I'm gonna put it on you, and have you answer, and then we'll flip back to me asking
the next questions. Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so the first 3 questions are: where did you get married? when did you get married? Like date, time, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the weather like on your wedding day?
Ooh, okay. I am born and raised here in Houston, so I got married here in Houston. I have a very large extended family. My husband grew up here in Houston as well. However, his family had moved to Phoenix, and he actually, the year that we got engaged, he moved out to Phoenix. So we were apart for a year while we were engaged. So we got married here. We got married at his home church in Bel Air.
Okay.
It is not their name changed or something, so it's not the same church. But we got married in his home church, and it was goodness. So when did you get married? I got married smack dab in the middle of the summer, July 2nd, 1994. And if you have lived anywhere in Texas in July, it was hot. And I realized that, so when Chad's grandmother was alive, she made this small wedding album. Like it was her little keepsake because she was a picture taker. So she would make little albums of special occasions. And it sits on the end table in our living room. I wore a long sleeved wedding dress.
In July?
I don't know what I was thinking. I was insane. I don't know what I was. It was hot. July 2nd. It was hot.
Yeah.
I don't know. I looked at the picture. I'm like, I had a long sleeve dress in July.
Did you also have like a giant train?
I had a train. Yeah. And I wore a veil.
Oh.
I know. I was insane.
Luckily, your wedding was inside a church.
Yes.
Though, so that's good.
No. I can't. Yeah, that would have been miserable getting married in that dress with a long train and a veil.
I've been to some outside weddings in Houston in the summer, and let me tell you, they are miserable.
Especially this
bad.
summer. Ooh, no. Smack dab in the middle of July. I mean, like hot summer. Beginning of July. Yes, ma'am. And what was the third question? What? Oh, yeah. Hot. And Chad wore a tux.
Okay.
The guys wore a tux. I mean, like we were dressed up. And I do remember him sweating. Like it was just coming down the side of his face because he was so hot.
Oh, man.
I mean, like we're talking like the cummerbund, the tie, the necktie, and then the jacket.
Oh.
So, and then the long sleeve shirt. So like double.
Oh, and it was probably black too.
Yep.
Yes.
It was black. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. So.
Yeah, I know. We were insane. Of course, I got married almost 30 years ago. So, I mean, I think my wedding dress had poofy sleeves. And
yeah, probably.
Yeah, it did. And my hair was long. So I had the veil and it was just curled. My hair was probably as long as yours was.
Okay.
And it was curled and I had the veil.
Oh,
I was,
hot.
Yes.
Miserable.
Yes.
Sounds like it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the next three questions are, did you have a bridal party?
Mm-hmm.
And if you can tell us about them.
Okay.
Just briefly, like how many, their names and whatnot, how you knew them.
As you're asking me the other questions, let me think.
Who was the best man and maid of honor? And did you have a flower girl and ring bearer? And who were they?
Okay. So I did have a bridal party. My mother was in fact, I don't know, in one of our podcasts, I might have shared this. My mother and I fought a lot in the planning of our wedding because she was very traditional. And then we're trying to do like two cultures and a Filipino wedding. I mean, you go all out. I mean, she was like, you need to have some of your family that's bridal. You need to have a big wedding party. And, I couldn't have certain colors for my wedding because they were bad luck.
In the Filipino culture?
Like I wanted to do just a plain like black and white wedding. My mother was like, no, black is bad. It's bad. No, you need to have a really colorful wedding. So my colors were like fuchsia and white. Fuchsia. So all of my, if my best friend Kelly was here, she could attest to the dresses. Like they were all fuchsia dresses that had them handmade. The girls had matching shoes. And so my best friend Kelly was my maid of honor. And then one of my high school friends, and she also was one of my family members, she was in it. And then I had 3 cousins. So 5 people, I want to say.
Okay.
I might be wrong. 3, 4, 5. Yes. I had 5 people in my party. And Chad also had 5 people in his party. His brother, his middle brother, was his best man. And then Kelly's husband was one of the groomsmen. And then some of Chad's childhood friends. And then his younger brother was a groomsman. And I did have a flower girl. My cousin was the flower girl. One of my younger cousins was the flower girl, and my brother was the ring bearer.
No, that's right, because you guys are 9.
I'm 9.5 years older than him. So it was my cousin, MJ, and then my brother were the flower girl and ring bearer.
Oh, that's fun.
But it was funny because so after the wedding ceremony, the parties were supposed to like, the guys were supposed to put their arms out and the girls were just supposed to link them. Well, my brother and my cousin didn't want to do it. And so you can see my mom in the wedding video going like this. And so later on, I asked them when they were older, they were both like, we thought we were going to get married to each other because they were young.
Yes.
My brother, I think, was 9, and then my cousin was 7.
Okay.
So they didn't understand the whole wedding party thing. So I did have a big wedding party. And with the Filipino tradition, both of my parents walked me down the aisle. And then the guys came in, but my parents both walked me down the aisle.
Okay.
That was Filipino tradition.
That's cool.
And I had principal sponsors. So again, in the Filipino culture, you're supposed to pick sponsors they're mature couples that are supposed to help and support you in the marriage and pray for you. And I had 2 principal sponsors.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was different.
Yeah.
So we tried to put both cultures together.
That is cool how that worked out.
Yeah.
Did you? I feel like you mentioned this in one of the episodes, or maybe we've just talked about it. Didn't you say that when you guys were planning for your wedding, maybe you said it in the engagement one, that you guys ended up having a little bit of a struggle because in the American culture, the bride's, or no, the groom.
The bride's family pays for it.
Pays for the wedding,
in
right?
In the Filipino culture.
The grooms, right?
Yes.
And that ended up being kind of a tension, right?
Yes, that was a tension because I had to explain to my parents, no, in American culture, the bride's parents pay for it. And my mom goes, oh, well, in the Filipino culture, the groom's parents pay for it. And it was like, oh, okay, we're going to have to come to this decision head on. And so my parents were not expecting the cost. They weren't expecting to have to pay for a lot of the wedding because they thought that it was the other way around. So that was a little bit of some tension right there between my mom and I. I mean, they finally understood and they did, but then sometimes when we were planning the wedding, it was always, well, this is too expensive, or, so in some instances, I felt like I didn't really get to do some of what I wanted for my wedding, and in Asian culture, a big event like that, you have to make it look nice. Otherwise, people will talk about the event. Like it has to show up for itself. And because if it's a bad wedding or whatever, it's it's almost like shameful, if that makes sense. And so that was stressful on my parents. That was stressful on me, just planning the whole thing. So, yes, that was interesting. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, what were your wedding colors? You briefly talked about this. And what was your rehearsal dinner like? And, you know, I'm going to tag this on there since we're talking about how your wedding had to merge two cultures.
Excuse me.
In the Filipino culture, do they have rehearsal dinners? And with that, you can talk about what your rehearsal dinner was like and share what your colors and kind of how you decorated, what like your theme for your wedding was.
So my wedding was a very traditional wedding.
Okay.
Even like, you know, we did buy some flowers for the sanctuary. I want to say that we decorated the pews with bows. My girls each, we bought roses. So each of them had 2 roses. And then the guys had the little boutonnieres. My colors really, I was just really hot pink and white. My mom wanted that color, like a bright color. So that was what the color was. Rehearsal dinner. So again, yes, in the Filipino culture, you're going to have a big party. And again, it's going to have to kind of show itself. And in the Filipino culture, with any event, you just invite whoever you want. So like if a person gets invited to a wedding, they could just bring somebody with them. Like literally, like if it was the celebration was at somebody's house, they would invite the whole neighborhood to come into the house and celebrate. So Chad's parents paid for the rehearsal dinner. It was at church. It was, I think we did barbecue, and then we got a cake. I had some of my family members come and bring some of their friends. And it was like, you'll not understand, because in the American culture, you don't come unless you're invited. Exactly. So I was embarrassed because I had extra people at my rehearsal dinner because they were just, this used to drive me crazy about my family, is like, whenever there's a party, it doesn't matter whether or not you're invited, you just come because you want to come. And so I was slightly irritated about that, and I was stressed out. And Chad's mom could see that I was stressed out, and she was like, honey, it's okay. We're going to make the food work. We have plenty of food. And we did, you know, but I was just embarrassed because I was like, I'm so sorry. We weren't expecting these extra people to come. And so that was a little bit of a stressful time. And it was a really laid back wedding. I mean, rehearsal dinner. And we did it in one of the rooms, I guess like what you would call
like a fellowship
hall. Yes. I was like, what is the name of that? I can't think tonight, but it was in the fellowship hall, and we just had the wedding party. My parents, his grandparents, and then some of my family members who brought some friends that probably shouldn't have, but anyways. So
you know who you are. Not just kidding.
I don't know. They probably don't even remember now. But let's see. What was the other question?
What were your wedding colors?
Fuchsia.
Okay.
Now I do remember the cake. So the cake. Have you seen the movie Steel Magnolias?
Yes.
So I was just joking around with Chad's mom, and I was like, yeah, maybe we should get red velvet, like blood red. So she orders the cake for the rehearsal dinner. It's red velvet cake. And I was like, I wasn't being serious. I was joking around. It was a good cake, but it was funny. She ordered a red velvet cake because she thought I wanted a red velvet cake.
It's funny.
It is, because then I just kept thinking of the movie Steel Magnolias. Yeah. And even Chad was like, plaid red. I was funny. Be quiet. Be quiet.
That's funny.
Anyways, that was funny.
All right. Well, if you can remember, would you share a favorite memory from your wedding day? And with that, you can add in the next two questions. Did anything go wrong on your wedding day? And did you cry on your wedding day?
Favorite memory on my wedding day. Oh my goodness. This is honestly so long ago. I think it was just getting ready, walking down the aisle, being walked down the aisle by my parents. I thought that was special to me. With all of the planning that my mom and I went through and some of the things that we fought over, she was crying when she walked me down the aisle, and she gave me a kiss. And even like on the video, it's on a VHS, by the way. I don't even know where it is now, but it was recorded on a VHS. You could see her when she's sitting down. She's like wiping her tears away.
Aww.
So that was special because I didn't realize that she was crying when she's walking me down the aisle until I saw the video. So that was a good memory for me. So backstory before my wedding. So it was about 3 weeks before my wedding. Chad calls me and says, so I have some news. And I was like, okay, what's the news? Chad was playing softball. He played for his church's softball team. And he was running the bases and he slid into second base. Well, the base was not pushed down all the way in the ground, so it was up a little bit. So Chad's hand went underneath second base, and when the second baseman caught the ball, he stepped right on the base. It was Chad's left hand. He broke his hand. He had to have surgery on his hand 3 weeks before he got married. It might have been later than that, maybe like 4 or 5 weeks. So he broke his hand. He had to have pins in his hand several weeks before we got married. So on our wedding day, actually at our rehearsal dinner, he still had it wrapped. Like it was wrapped and he had a sling, but it was like the cast was taken off. So he's just had it wrapped and it was in a sling. And even at rehearsal, he had it in a sling. So the first time he had taken off the sling and the wrap was on our wedding day. So the way the church was set up was like, it was a high platform. We had unity candles. The unity candle was up. And we go to light the unity candle. I'm short. So even in the wedding video, you see me, I have to kind of step up on the platform and I have the candle. I have my veil. I remember my wedding coordinator going, do not put that candle by your veil. Do not put that candle by your veil. So I'm precariously balancing myself on the platform, kind of on one foot, and I have the unity candle. Chad's holding me, kind of holding me up, and he has his unity candle, his candle. We go to light it. My candle puts his candle out. So I was like, I got upset because I was like, this got ruined. The moment got ruined. So Chad had to take his candle and he lit it by himself. And then he couldn't really see it. So he had to kind of get on his tippy toes to light it. And he finally lit it and he put it down. So we walk back down. I'm to the point I'm about to start crying. And so he grabs my hand and he goes, it's okay. It's going to be okay. Well, in my moment, I squeezed his hand. I squeezed his hand. And he goes, my hand. So he pulled his hand out and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. So I start crying and he's like, it's okay. But you can see on the video, like I grabbed his hand so hard that he went, you can see him flinch and he kind of pulled his hand from my grip. So I was just like, Oh,
people probably thought you guys were having your first fight.
Right? Like, it was horrible. I felt so bad. So for the sake of pictures after the ceremony, I went back up on the platform. We retook the unity candle picture because it just wasn't lighted the correct way.
Right.
It was so bad. And probably some of the other funniest moments was, so my photographer, bless his heart, he was a retired photographer who was 75. And so he moved really slow. And whenever he would set us up to take pictures, he'd go, "Whoa, look at me. And so it was like, it got to the point where we were just laughing and giggling because that was all he would say was, "Ooh, look at me, hey." And so my mom, I remember in one of the pictures, she's like jabbing me and pinching me because she can't stop laughing. And I'm like, "Mom." So in one of the pictures, she's kind of laughing and she has a hold of my wedding dress and she's kind of like poking me. And I'm like, kind of looking at her like, "What are you doing?" So it's funny. So those were my funny moments at my wedding.
That's funny.
Gosh. Memory lane.
All right. Well, we're down to the last 3 questions. Tell us a little bit about your reception, if you had one. Where did you guys honeymoon, if you did? And looking back 30 years from now, is there anything that you would change or add to your wedding day?
Oh, so reception. My reception was big and it was in the church gym.
The same church that you got married at? Okay.
We just basically walked into the gym and that was where the reception was. It was a big reception. I feel like we had more people there, but of course, so I'm Filipino, there's a lot of food. So it was a mixture of Chinese food and Filipino food mixed in there. Lots of people there eating the food. And then we had a groom's cake and a big wedding cake. And Chad's groom's cake was a Dallas Cowboys fudge cake
That's awesome.
that he only got to take one bite of because it got eaten up. He was like, because we were both tired. I actually had strep a couple of days before my wedding because I was so stressed out.
Oh, man.
And so I was still on antibiotics. So my throat was still not feeling that great. So I wasn't that hungry. And Chad was tired and he was like, "Oh, I'll get some more cake later." And then when he goes to get more cake, he's like, "Oh my gosh, I only got one, like literally 2 bites of my cake. I didn't even get to eat my groom's cake. Everybody ate it."
Sounds like you need to get him a Dallas Cowboys fudge cake for your 30th anniversary.
Ooh, that's a good idea. I need to.
A small little Dallas Cowboy. Just 30's a big deal.
Yeah.
You should.
I don't know. That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
I don't know if you know where you got it. And if it still exists.
Actually, it was my wedding coordinator's niece that made cakes for the church.
Is someone knocking?
I don't know.
Sorry, guys.
I don't know.
Maybe not. I thought I heard someone knocking. Yes.
Yeah, but it was a great reception.
I bet you could find somewhere to get a Dallas Cowboys chocolate fudge cake.
That's a good idea. I like that.
Anyway, sorry.
So we were poor. So actually, I got married. We actually packed a U-Haul for me to move. I was moving to Phoenix.
Right after your wedding?
Right after my wedding. So literally my in-laws took the U-Haul. We left the next day and we honeymooned in San Antonio, Texas. That was just one of the places that was close by.
And still romantic.
And romantic. And it was nice.
Right.
You know, that's like our special place now. Like if we want to go away or something, San Antonio is our go away place because like that's our place. Yeah. And, we did some fun stuff. We went to Six Flags. We went to SeaWorld.
Okay.
And then we just went around the town. But that's where we honeymooned. I mean, because we were young. I didn't have a job yet. Chad had just started his job maybe 6 months before. So we didn't have a lot of money. So, but it was nice. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And the last question, looking back, is there anything you would change or add?
I wish that I wouldn't have stressed myself so much to the point that I got sick.
Mm-hmm.
Like the last maybe 3 or 4 days before I got married, I didn't sleep very much. And so I got sick. I ended up getting strep. So my mom is a nurse, and one of the doctors that she worked for years part-time, because the doctor basically was like, well, I'm not going to give her medicine unless we see her. So my mom just called up the doctor and was like, she doesn't feel good. Her throat is red. I looked in her throat. I'm pretty sure she has strep throat. And the doctor that she had worked for was like, no problem, Helen. Got it. Wrote me out a prescription, and I was on amoxicillin the whole time I was, prepping for my wedding. So I wish I wouldn't have stressed myself out so much. It was a nice wedding. I was happy with it. The planning part going into it was, because my mother and I just kept clashing. I just wish I wouldn't have stressed myself out so much.
Yeah.
But I have enjoyed going through my walk, my wedding walk. God,
memory lane.
30 years ago.
Yeah.
30 years ago. Oh, I do remember one thing. So we still had so many people, so we had to do a mock leaving. So they videotaped us getting into my car pretending like we were leaving. And so some of my husband's groomsmen and my brother included, I don't know what they were thinking. So my brother decides that it's going to be funny to chunk the bird seed, like not open the package, just chunk it at us, and it hit Chad in the head. So like Chad's laughing in the video, and then he gets hit by this thing and you could see he looks really mad. Like he's so mad. And he's like, I'm going to kill your brother. He hit me in the head. Anyways, that was a funny thing that I just thought about. But anyways, I wouldn't change a thing other than I wish I wouldn't have stressed myself out. But almost 30 years later.
Yeah, that's
I still
amazing.
Remember. Yeah. All right. It is your turn, my friend. So I'm going to ask you the questions. I'll ask you the first 3 just like you asked me. Where did you get married? When did you get married? Like date and time. And what was the weather like on your wedding day?
So my husband and I got married in Carbondale, Illinois, which is the small town that we went to college in and lived in for a few years. We got married at Lakeland Baptist Church, where my dad is the pastor at, still is to this day. I don't even know how many years now. That's crazy. It's been a long time. And we got married in the afternoon. About 2:00 was our wedding, because I wanted to have enough time to do my hair and my makeup and not feel like I have to get up at 4 a.m. I wanted to rest well, although I didn't rest well the night before my wedding.
Who does?
I know.
Honestly.
But I did want the morning to be like as relaxed as possible and just like, okay, so we had a 2:00 wedding. And my wedding was a little bit longer than most weddings, but the weather, we got married in June. It's not near as bad as Texas, but it's still pretty hot and humid.
Okay.
Backstory, I really wanted to get married in December. I wanted a Christmas wedding. My husband and I love Christmas.
Yeah.
But I've shared this with you before.
Yeah, that's why I'm laughing.
It became very clear and evident that it was time for us to move up our timetable of when we should get married.
Yeah.
So Jason and I got married in June.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't change anything about that. June 9th, 2007. So we are coming up on, is that 17 years? I think it's 17 years this year.
Oh, wow.
Which is wild to me.
Yeah, I know. 30 years for me, I'm like, whoo.
Yeah, that's a big, yeah.
Time goes by fast.
It sure does.
It really does.
It does.
It's exciting. Yeah.
So I think that's it. I think that was all your questions at first.
Yes. Okay. So, did you have a wedding party? Tell us about them. Who was the best man, maid of honor, and who were your flower girls and your ring bearer?
Okay. Yes, I had a bridal party, and everyone in my bridal party, I had all of my sisters.
Mm-hmm.
So I had, my youngest sister was my flower girl. Actually, she was probably 5 at the time, maybe 6.
Wow.
And then, a couple that my husband and I knew really well, their son, Cameron, was the ring bearer. So the two of them were flower girl, ring bearer, and then the rest of my sisters were my bridesmaids. And so I had one, let's see, Hannah,
I know you
Becky,
have to count,
Megan.
huh?
So I had 3 sisters as bridesmaids, and then my 2 best friends as my maids of honor.
Okay.
Which Melody was one of them, and then my best friend Eugen.
Okay.
So they both were my maid of honor.
Okay.
Now my husband had his best man was not his brother. There were some people who were like, that's weird. Why is his brother not his best man? Even though Jason is good friends with his brother, the person he chose as his best man was the person who had the most impact in his life.
Yeah.
As far as encouraging him to love God and love people. And that was his friend Andy from New Hampshire.
Okay.
And then another groomsman was my brother, his brother, and then a roommate from college who is still very precious and dear to us. I mean, they all are. And then my best guy friend from high school was also a good friend of his. Okay. He was also a groomsman in our wedding.
Okay.
So
cool. So you had 5 people each too, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that was like fine. Okay, cool.
I felt like that was a great size. It wasn't so big, but it also wasn't small either. Yeah. Yeah, I answered all those questions. Yeah. I'm like, did I answer everything?
Let me see. 2, 3, 4. What were your wedding colors? What was your rehearsal dinner like? And what was your favorite memory on your wedding day?
So, I'm really sorry, Eugen and Melody. So, okay. So,
it's going to be a good one.
I also was married young. So I didn't have a lot of money. Yeah. My parents gave me a little bit of money, but not much. I think my dad wrote me a check for $500. Okay. Which covered pretty much my dress, maybe the food. Maybe it was the food because my grandma bought my dress. My grandma Dorothy bought my dress. Okay. So my wedding, a dear lady from our church who really just loved me well and invested into my life. She told me when she found out we were engaged, she's like, I would love to make your bridesmaids dresses. And she was an incredible seamstress.
Wow, that's cool.
So I'm like, oh, and that was her gift to me. And so I thought, okay. So I went and picked out a simple pattern, like an A-line, like mid-length sleeveless dress. Yeah. The fabric I picked out was very shiny. Oh. It was like a silk shine. And so the maids of honor wore a different color. They wore like a champagne color. Yeah. And then the bridesmaids all wore like the color of the curtains. Like a wine red. Yeah. Yeah. But it was so shiny.
Oh. You know, my dresses were like hot pink.
I can only imagine.
And hot pink shoes. Like the fabric where you dye. Yes. Their shoes were all dyed hot pink too.
That's so funny.
And then I'm like, what in the heavens was I thinking?
But a really cool like side story before I jump into the rehearsal dinner discussion. So, but when Jason and I when we were engaged, there was one Saturday, like several months, and probably we got engaged in November. So I would say probably around January is when this conversation happened. My mom and my mother and my future mother-in-law at the time, the three of us sat down at the kitchen table in my home.
Yeah.
And well, in my parents' home, but in the home that I grew up in. And we sat down and talked about what my hope was for our wedding day. And so then we divided up the responsibilities. Yeah. Well, 6 weeks before the wedding, my mother-in-law found out from my best friend that nothing was getting done as far as the wedding was going on certain people's parts.
Yeah.
And that what played into that was there was a lot of some of my siblings were going through a rough season, and my mom's time was really devoted to that.
Yeah.
And so she was very spent on that. And plus my dad was gone on the weekends preaching at the church he's now the pastor of.
Yeah.
Our home hadn't sold yet, so they hadn't moved to Carbondale yet. Anyway, there was so much hard going on in my family and so much sadness and depression.
Yeah.
Nothing was getting, like 6 weeks before the wedding, and I'm like panicked.
Yeah.
And I tell my best friend, and my best friend knows my mother-in-law well, and she relays it. Then my mother-in-law calls and says, "Hey, I'm coming down this weekend. We're getting this stuff done." I'm like, and I just started crying.
Yeah. Well, that's overwhelming.
She came down and she said, "Okay." Like she's very much a doer and a planner. And so she had her whole list. Like she would be an amazing wedding coordinator. Actually, I tell her this all the time. So she's like, "Okay, let's knock out what we can today, and then we'll do it the next day." And by the end of the weekend, we had almost everything ready and going.
Wow.
Now, I was panicked because I'm like, I'm not going to be able to have the dream wedding that I want because it's going to be too much money. And little did I know, and I should have not been surprised by this, my in-laws paid for my dream wedding.
Oh, that's really cool.
Like I don't even know how much money they spent, but they did. They paid for a lot of the wedding. Now, my mother-in-law did say, as soon as your mom steps back in and is able to like help when she can, I'm going to step aside because I want her to know that, like, I don't want to take over that.
Oh yeah.
You know? So she was very gracious in that regards. So yeah, my mother-in-law, at that time she had her own, floral business, silk floral arrangements.
Oh, okay.
So she was very talented in, designing, and creating amazing arrangements. Oh. And she would sell these on Etsy and make some good money. And so she made gorgeous floral arrangements.
Oh, wow.
My wedding was not overly decorated, but it was decorated.
Yeah.
Simple and pretty. And she was a big help of that. And then my Melody, actually, she's an incredible florist as well. She used to work at a floral shop. And so she helped design some of the floral arrangements. Yeah. She made we had silk bouquets because it was cheaper. So she made all of the bridesmaids bouquets, and she made my bouquet.
Wow.
She did so much for my wedding. And, and the crazy thing is, as I'm telling you this, I need to remind her how grateful I am for all the work she did. She doesn't have very great strength in her hands because she had like a weird tumor like thing in her hand and had to have surgery on her hand. And ever since then, she hasn't had like that dexterity and strength,
Yeah.
And she had to work so much with her hands for my wedding. And I don't think I ever once heard her complain.
Wow.
And she gladly did it.
That's really cool.
So anyway.
That's really cool.
So wedding colors were champagne and wine color.
Oh.
My rehearsal dinner. Oh my goodness, Ellen. It was so special. So I was not part of the rehearsal dinner planning. My mother-in-law, it was a surprise for me.
Really?
It was a complete surprise. Now, I told her that I would love to do the rehearsal dinner at Giant City Lodge, which is this really pretty, I don't even know how to explain it, but it's a really nice restaurant in Carbondale, and it serves like family style. It's like a family style dinner where you And so I wanted that atmosphere because I wanted to feel like we were all family and coming together celebrating. But as far as everything else, she did it all. So she sent out rehearsal dinner invitations, and I wish I had my wedding album in here so I could show you, but it's packed away. It was a Cinderella glass slipper at the bottom, and it said the parents of Jason, Mark, Allison invite you to the rehearsal dinner of their son marrying. Elegant, so elegant. And so I walk into the rehearsal dinner, and it's a Cinderella themed rehearsal dinner.
How sweet.
Which is mind blowing to me because like there's glass slippers everywhere because of all the Disney princesses.
She really would have been a good wedding coordinator.
Of all the Disney princesses, in some ways I feel like I relate a lot to Cinderella because growing up, I was kind of enslaved by my family and treated lesser than. And then God rescued me and redeemed me. And I met this amazing Prince Charming, Jason Mark. So it was such a special rehearsal dinner. And I saved one of the glass slippers and a few other things. She even ordered Cinderella carriage picture frames and printed all of our engagement pictures. And there were different.
Yeah.
There was like a Cinderella castle frame, but she put our engagement pictures all around.
Oh my gosh.
Stunning. It was so
stunning. Wow.
So she decorated the reception hall. I'm telling you, like there were so many ladies from church and family that jumped right in and helped decorate. There was some that was a hard season for my family, the wedding time. My older sister and I really had walked through some hard stuff with our family.
And it was you and your sister.
So my older sister and I got married 3 weeks apart.
Yeah, it was like really close.
And so we were there for one another and helped each other. My mother-in-law actually made 12 layered cakes for my sister's wedding because we didn't have the help from family that we thought we would have. They were not there, and so we helped each other.
Wow.
I went to her wedding dress try-ons. She came to mine. Our grandma Dorothy was still living, and my grandma Dorothy came to my final fitting and just teared up. And she's like, "Look at you! You're so stunning!" And I cried. And my grandma Dorothy, as we were checking out, I was getting ready to pay for my dress.
Yeah,
because I paid. You had to pay a down payment.
Yeah, that was with Ashlyn's dress too.
And then I went to finalize the payment, and my grandma was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Paying for my." She's like, "No, ma'am, put that away." And she paid for my
dress. Oh,
so I was so thankful that she was there on my wedding. It was special for me to have her there. And,
and she paid for your dress, and you weren't expecting that. That's really cool. So you had a lot of memorable moments because so many people came together to make your wedding nice.
Yes.
Because the things that you were going through with your family at the time, you were thinking, you weren't thinking it was going to be the way you wanted it to be.
Oh yeah. I really didn't think. I was like, there's no way.
Yeah.
And the same happened with my sister Megan. My sister Megan, like, I'm pretty sure it was 2 weeks before her wedding. She can correct me if I'm wrong. And I sometimes am. But she called me in tears. She's like, the cakes aren't done. Mom hasn't made the cakes. I'm like, or even gotten the supplies or anything. Like, no, maybe it wasn't 2 weeks because we wouldn't have made the cakes 2 weeks before. I think we would have done it a week before.
So your mom was supposed to make the cakes.
Yes. Either way, it didn't get done. And so she's in tears. And I'm like, hold on.
Yeah.
Let's see what we can figure out. And so we called our close friends, and I called my mother-in-law, and we got it worked out.
Wow.
And the cakes were amazing because she didn't have enough. She didn't have money to buy. Like she bought a wedding cake, right? For pictures, but it was small.
Yeah.
But to feed everyone,
so
she had to make sheet cakes, but she couldn't afford sheet cakes. So we made sheet cakes.
Oh, wow.
Not we did. My mother-in-law made the sheet cakes for her wedding. And then I think the night, maybe it was 2 days before. No, it was the day it was rehearsal. everyone was in the kitchen putting the frosting on Hershey cakes. It was amazing.
Wow.
It was amazing to see, like, because, my sister and I can remember, and she could testify to this, how we would cry and just pray, like, God, this is our hope and our desire.
Yeah.
And it's hard right now, and these things aren't working out. And would you provide? And he ended up providing in an incredible way. Like people who like just came out like, we want to help. How can we help? Here, we'll do this. We'll do this. And it was just really amazing to see the church come together and help make that happen.
That's really cool. I don't remember what question we left off of.
I think
9?
We're right at 9. Yes.
Okay. So did anything go wrong on your wedding day? Did you cry on your wedding day? And tell us about your reception. So
I noticed I didn't mention this, so I will talk about this too.
Yes.
My favorite memory on my wedding day.
Yes.
I was not expecting this, and of course, they brought it to me right before I was going to be walking down the aisle.
Uh-huh.
So all the bridesmaids prayed over me right before.
Oh, that's cool.
And then when the prayer ended, my mother-in-law was not the one who brought it to me. Maybe she did. Someone brought it to me, but it was a letter from Jason.
Oh.
And it was a card.
Yeah.
And then he wrote a little a sweet card that I'm sure his mom picked out, because I'm like, this is so sentimental. This is not Jason at all. But he wrote in it, and the thing that he wrote, like the first sentence, I still think about this. It's in my wedding album too. So he calls me Catherine.
Yeah.
But it was like, Catherine, I look forward to spending forever with you, following into eternity. And like, it just like this sweet poetic way of saying, I love you. And I'm so thankful that you said yes. And today's the day that we're going to be man. And I'm like, really, people? I'm just like weeping.
And you're crying and your makeup and you're, I just did my face.
Like, and then like, in pops my dad, hey, you ready? I'm like, no.
Do you see the tears running down my cheeks and my messed up makeup?
So I had to like, okay. And I'm like, okay, breathe. Okay, Lord.
Aww.
Okay, and so
I should have done that at the reception or something.
You can actually see, it's actually a funny memory now. If you look at the pictures in my photo album and I'm walking down, I look like I'm about to faint or pass out, because you could tell I just finished crying, and I'm like, because I'm trying to hold it together.
Yeah.
So that was for sure my favorite memory.
Oh,
was getting that letter from Jason and reading the words that he said to me right before our wedding.
Cool.
Did anything go wrong? Oh my heavens.
What doesn't go wrong at all?
Here's the funny thing. I didn't know half the stuff went wrong, because my maid of honor, both of them, and my mother-in-law, all three said, you will say nothing to the bride if it goes wrong.
Oh.
We're going to just keep on going like it's the best and most amazing day ever.
So what went wrong?
So apparently, so I had an aisle runner.
Yeah.
And apparently the two ushers, which they were family, were having a hard time getting the aisle runner. They practiced it right before, getting it to roll smoothly.
Oh.
And so my dad was like, you know what? We're not going to do that. We're just going to leave that out. I really wanted an aisle runner.
Yeah.
Because I wanted that distinction. I wanted that white aisle runner, and I wanted people to be able to see the red roses that were going to be thrown on the ground. And so apparently that was going to be nixed.
Oh.
But my maid, one of my maids of honor, I'm pretty sure I knew who it was. I was never told who it was. Like, no, Kathy wants that. That's staying. So that was one thing. And then the stupid lighter for the candle.
See, what is it about the Unity candle? I'm telling you.
So
that's why people don't use them that much. It wouldn't light?
It was having a hard time clicking and lighting.
During the ceremony, y'all didn't check. Oh, boy.
Oh, no, we checked.
Click.
But I'm like, maybe I was nervous. I don't know. But it ended up working. It ended up being fine.
Did you have a veil?
I didn't.
Okay.
Because I'm actually allergic to tulle. And most veils are tulle, so no.
I did not know that, Kathy.
Listen, I didn't know either until about 3 weeks before the wedding when we had a bridal shower.
Yeah.
My best friend, one of the traditions, I don't know if you do this in the Filipino culture, but in the American culture, when you unwrap gifts, if the gifts have bows, you make a bow bouquet for your rehearsal dinner.
Yeah.
Okay, so my maid of honor took some of the tulle from one of the gifts for my handle to hold. Yeah. Anyway, so I held it during the bridal shower, and within 20 minutes, all down my arm.
Well, good thing you found out before you got married. That would have been miserable.
I flip open the veil and
your face is red from an allergic reaction. I have never heard of being allergic to tulle.
Yes.
Whoa.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. That's why you didn't have a veil.
Yes, I did cry on my wedding day, as we already talked about. Reception. We had it wasn't like a full blown sit down and eat reception, like meals. It was more like finger foods.
Yeah.
Fruits, vegetables, little sandwiches, some meat.
So finger food.
Finger type foods. The cake was amazing. We didn't have a groom's cake.
Who made your cake?
A local bakery in Carbondale. It was incredible. But I'm like, Chad, we barely got any of it. I'm pretty sure the only piece that we got was the piece when we fed each other.
Yeah, pretty much that's ours. And because we're like, what? Where's the cake?
I remember thinking, this was so good. I want more. And we got a piece and we were trying to get back to our table to sit down and eat it. But you know how it goes at the reception.
Oh, yeah, I know. Everybody wants to talk to you, take pictures, and
So we didn't get to eat our delicious cake. Now, they did save the topper for our first anniversary, but it wasn't that great.
I don't think we saved Ashlyn and Isaac's topper. Somebody's mentioned it. I'm like, oh my gosh, we didn't save it. Yeah. Anyways. Let's see.
I think I answered all your questions.
No, yeah.
I think you have two more. Maybe.
Where did you honeymoon? And looking back, is there anything you would change or add to your wedding day?
Where did I honeymoon? We were all so poor.
Now, your honeymoon story is funny.
Oh, yes. We got some great honeymoon stories. Yeah. Well, so we ended up going somewhere that we could drive to. And so we went to Gatlinburg, Smoky Mountains, and stayed in a cabin.
That's pretty, though.
It actually was a great honeymoon.
Yeah.
We had an idea of going to Hawaii or a destination place, but we didn't have the money to do that. And so our next favorite place was mountains, seclusion type of thing. And then being able to get out when we want, but also stay in if we wanted to. Yeah. And so I loved it. But I will tell you this story. We've told you this many times. Actually, I have two funny stories I want to share about our honeymoon. So we went to Gatlinburg, and the way that my husband describes it is Gatlinburg is a honeymoon destination for people who are 50 years plus. I don't know if that's an accurate statement if you're from Tennessee, but that's the way that he describes it to people.
Okay.
So everyone in there is honeymooning, it feels like, everywhere you look. And people are honking because cars say honk for the bride and groom. And this was probably our second day in Gatlinburg, and we're walking and we get in the car and we're heading back to the cabin. But before we do, we see off to the side that's more in the distance this place that says it's got a big sign that says Cupid. And I'm like, oh, let's go there. Because we're on our honeymoon and Cupid's the love god and it's probably got lots of love in it. And Jason's also young and grew up very sheltered in a SBC family. And so he's like, sure, let's go. Oh my goodness, y'all. We walk into the store.
They told us this story.
We walk to the first aisle, and as our brain is now finally registering the things that we're looking at, we hear behind us, "Hey, what are you doing in here?" And we both turn and look, and we hear a man's voice, but we see a female.
Yeah.
And we're like, and he's like, "How old are you, young lady?" I'm like, 21. He's like, oh, "Okay, you're fine. What's?" And then Jason's like, "We're leaving now." I was like, "Okay." So we left and we got in the car, and then it hit us. That was a store that was
to self. Anything that says Cupid or love or whatever on it, don't go in the store.
And y'all, like, I won't go into details, but I was like in the car, like, what is that? What? Like, what just happened? And Jason's like, "Oh my."
That's your funny honeymoon story there.
Oh my goodness.
That's hilarious.
And then let's see. The sad part of our honeymoon is Jason got sick. I think the busyness of planning for the wedding.
Oh yeah.
And like that
You're
week
tired.
of, I think it wiped him. And so he was sick for a couple of days. And so we pretty much, looking back, I'm sad he was sick, but I'm glad that he was sick because we literally stayed in the cabin and ordered in food and watched our favorite movies and laughed and played games. Had the best time.
Yeah.
And then when he was better, we went and explored and did things.
Yeah.
But
yeah. How long was your honeymoon?
I want to say it was 7 days.
Okay.
But I feel like we were too poor to afford 7 days, so maybe not.
I don't even know. Yeah, because I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, how long were we on our honeymoon? I mean, we had to drive to Phoenix. So Chad has a certain amount of time off. So we still had to take that into account when we were driving to Phoenix. But I think maybe our honeymoon was like 4 days.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it was spent driving.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's been so long.
And the other funny thing about our honeymoon is, and then I'll answer your last question you had for me. So I can get anxious when I'm driving on like mountain roads.
Mm-hmm.
They're a little bit terrifying for me.
Yeah.
Especially if there's like the large mountain cliff on this side, and then you look down and it's this massive
like
drop.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I don't like that. Makes me claustrophobic. Like it just makes me anxious and nervous. I also don't like driving next to semis.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so we're driving in the mountains because we're in Gatlinburg and going to the Smoky Mountains. Here I am, right here. Here's a massive semi, and here's this cliff. Jason is kind of sleeping. I'm like, oh, wake up! Like super panicky, nervous, and I float. Like I'm driving, okay?
Oh. I
throw my hands up in the air. I'm like, oh my gosh! And Jason's like, what the heck are you doing? Put your hand on them. I'm like, I don't want to drive. 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 And so I'm like holding him, like, Jason. He's like, you're fine. Just drive freaking car and get us somewhere safe, and then I will take over. I'm like, he will never let me live that one down.
No, I don't like driving in the mountains either.
It just
no.
Anyway,
yeah, in the Smoky Mountains and
your last question. Looking back, is there anything I would change or add to my wedding day? There's nothing that I would add to it. Is there something I would change? Yeah, I think that I at the time there were some parts of my wedding where like the wrong emphasis. I wanted, although I have heard from many friends and family members that our wedding day was one of the most worshipful weddings I've ever been a part of.
Yeah,
because we sang worship songs in our wedding.
Yeah.
I was lifting in one of my pictures. I'm lifting my hands during worship and stuff like that. I would have loved to have toned the wedding down a little bit. I want, like looking back, I think I would have liked it to be more simple.
Yeah.
I think I got so caught up in what is everyone going to think of my wedding if it's too simple and boring, or they,
Yeah.
So I let the fear of man kind of dictate and rule how I plan my wedding.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved my rehearsal dinner was amazing. The reception was amazing.
Yeah.
And
how many guests did you have?
I think right around 200.
Okay. Oh, that's a big wedding. Yeah.
The other thing I loved was some of the fellowship. There was some sweet moments of fellowship with some family and friends. So,
yeah.
Anyway.
That's the nice thing about receptions.
It was a great wedding.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for the 17 years, the good, the bad, and all of it.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, it was nice going down memory lane.
Yeah.
Days. Now I'm like, oh.
I was actually just talking with Melody and Jill about my wedding dress because I still have my wedding dress.
Me too. It's in my closet.
And I'm sitting here wondering, like, what should I do with this? Because I saved it for my girls to wear. Well, Evangeline and Dorothy are going to be too tall for my wedding dress.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you know this. I've recently found this out, Melody, because I asked them for some ideas. There are lots of people who send their wedding dresses in and have them turned into like a wedding nightgown or a wedding robe, like a really pretty fancy robe, and they take fabric from the dress. There are some people who take the fabric and make little hand purses. So, or I've seen some where they've taken the fabric and made ornaments. There's a whole website. Like if you Pinterest.
I still have my wedding dress in the plastic bag in my closet.
So like I Pinterest some ideas and I saw, and in fact, I asked Jason's mom if she still had her wedding gown. Cause if so, I was going to ask if I could have it so that I can order purses for each of her granddaughters made out of her wedding dress.
Oh,
but she ended up selling the wedding dress, which is fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
So I'm probably going to do something like that where I'm going to have something made out of my dresses to give to the girls on their wedding day. Because, on your wedding day, you wear something blue, something borrowed, something old,
and something new.
So the old and borrowed could be the wedding dress.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Well, again, like when my daughter got married, my dress was obviously too short for her. And she has broader shoulders than I do and a bigger chest. So like my dress wouldn't have fit her.
Yeah. Anyway, well, this was fun. Thanks for sharing your wedding with us. I love talking about weddings.
I know. I went through that last year with my daughter.
Yeah. Well, this has been wonderful. We're so glad that you came to listen to our stories of our weddings. We would love to hear from you guys. Like share a favorite memory or maybe even we can do this on our Facebook page.
Yeah.
Share our wedding pictures.
Ooh. Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
what is that? Friday or Saturday?
Yeah. Share our wedding pictures. That could be super fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us this evening. We're growing together in grace. And I'm Kathy.
I'm Ellen.
And we'll talk to you later.
Bye, ladies.
Bye.